Welcome to Starwatch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. What if love was never spoken, yet always felt? What if, behind every composed smile and silent glance, there lived a truth too heavy to say aloud, until one life-changing moment forced it into the light? This is not a story dressed in glamour or scripted for drama. It's raw, it's real, and it begins not with a declaration, but with a fear, the fear of losing the one person who had quietly become everything. Xiao Zhan, known for his grace under pressure, found himself stripped of all composure when the man he had protected in silence for years was suddenly on the verge of slipping away. In a world that thrives on appearances, he had always known how to keep emotions hidden behind polite nods and perfect timing. But no training could prepare him for this. It wasn't fame or success he feared losing. It was something deeper, something irreplaceable. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried not performance, but truth. I almost lost the person I love and care about. That sentence, simple yet profound, shook the world more than any headline. Because love, when finally revealed after being buried in silence, is the loudest thing of all. It all started on a day like any other. The skies were clear, the cameras were ready, and Xiao Zhan, ever composed, moved through his tightly packed schedule with the same quiet determination that had defined his career. There were no signs, no warnings, just the silent rhythm of fame, obligation, and a heart that had learned to beat behind a wall. Until one phone call changed everything. His manager's voice trembled. Wang Yibo had been in a serious accident. He was in critical condition, undergoing emergency surgery. In that instant, time slowed. The noise of the world dimmed. Xiao Zhan didn't speak. He didn't ask questions. He simply froze, then moved, faster than anyone had ever seen him. He abandoned everything, his commitments, his image, his control. At the hospital, reality struck harder. The ICU doors were shut. Only family could enter. Legally, he wasn't that. But in every way that mattered, he was more than that. He pleaded not as a celebrity, but as someone whose heart was breaking in real time. I just want to see him, just for a moment. But the answer was still no. So he waited, silent, on a cold hospital floor, for hours that felt like lifetimes. There were no cameras here, no lights, just a man unraveling quietly, inch by inch. The surgery lasted 7 hours. 7 hours of not knowing. 7 hours of silent prayers, of guilt, of helplessness. For Xiao Zhan, it was not about losing a colleague or a friend. It was about the terrifying possibility of never again seeing the only person who had ever truly understood him. Not as an idol, not as an image, but as a human being. The weight of that love, unspoken but undeniable, pressed down on every second. And when the doctors finally emerged, their words hung in the air like a fragile thread. He made it, but he's still unconscious. Xiao Zhan didn't cry, but the silence in his eyes screamed louder than any tear ever could. This was the beginning, not of a romance designed for headlines, but of a truth far more powerful. That sometimes, love doesn't wait for the perfect moment to speak. It waits until silence is no longer survivable. The moment the news broke, the world stood still. Fans from Seoul to San Francisco, Tokyo to Toronto, were caught in the tidal wave of emotion that followed. Social media erupted not with rumors, but with raw empathy. Images of Xiao Zhan sitting silently outside the ICU began circulating, and something shifted. What had once been whispers in fandoms became a collective heartbeat. This wasn't a scripted drama. It wasn't a promotional stunt. This was real, and it hurt. For so long, Xiao Zhan had worn the mask of a star. Disciplined, elegant, untouchable. But now that mask had fallen. In its place was a man whose pain couldn't be hidden. A man who, for the first time, allowed the world to see how deeply he could feel. The stillness in his eyes, the trembling of his hands, the way he waited, hour after hour, refusing rest, refusing to leave. These weren't gestures for sympathy. They were the quiet acts of someone shattered by the weight of almost losing everything. Then came the breakthrough. Wang Yibo woke up, weakly, painfully, but the first words he whispered were not about work or recovery. They were about Xiao Zhan. Is he here? That one question carried more weight than 1,000 interviews. It silenced critics, united fanbases, and melted cynics. Because love, genuine, vulnerable love, doesn't need grand declarations. It just needs a name spoken when the soul is closest to the edge. In the days that followed, Xiao Zhan finally addressed the world. He didn't embellish. He didn't perform. He simply said, "I almost lost the person I love and care about." It was a sentence that changed everything. Not because it confirmed a relationship, but because it confirmed a truth that had lived between them for years, buried under the pressure of fame, hidden in stolen glances and quiet gestures. Public reaction wasn't divided. It was unified, emotional, overwhelming. Tears were shed by strangers thousands of miles apart. Messages of support poured in from every language, every culture. In a world so often cynical, this moment reminded people of something pure. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. And that, more than anything, is why this story stayed in hearts around the world. It wasn't just about who they were. It was about what they made people believe in again. In the end, this story was never really just about a car crash, a hospital corridor, or even a sudden confession. It was about what happens when silence finally breaks. It was about two people whose lives have long been lived under scrutiny, under pressure, and behind carefully curated images, and how, in the most unexpected moment, that image shattered to reveal something utterly human. Vulnerability, loyalty, fear, and love. Xiao Zhan's words, "I almost lost the person I love and care about," were not just spoken for Wang Yibo. They echoed in the hearts of millions who have loved quietly, who have waited in the dark for someone to open their eyes and call their name. His voice gave language to a kind of affection that's often unspoken, especially in the unforgiving world of fame. And it reminded people that behind every celebrity is a person, aching, hoping, breaking just like anyone else. What this moment gave the world was more than just a headline. It was a mirror. It made people stop and think about the ones they hold dear, about the moments they missed, the words they never said, the hands they didn't hold tightly enough. It stirred something soft and unspoken in every viewer. The longing to be seen, to be chosen, to be the one someone waits for outside an ICU with no promise, only faith. In cultures around the world, whether you're watching in Seoul, Los Angeles, Paris, Bangkok, or Manila, love still speaks the same language. It's in the way you stay when everything says go. It's in the silence you keep when words might ruin everything. And it's in the way someone's name becomes a prayer on your lips, even when you're not sure they'll hear it. This story will stay with us, not just because of the fame of its protagonists, but because of the quiet truth it told. That love, real love, doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits in silence. Sometimes it trembles in a corridor. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it gets to say, "Thank you for waking up." If the story moved you, if it made you remember someone or feel something again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to bring you stories that reach deeper than headlines. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay kind, stay real, and never take love for granted. If you felt something stir in your heart while watching this story, whether it was a memory, a sense of longing, or even a small tear you didn't expect, then perhaps you understand why stories like this matter. In a world saturated with noise, gossip, and fleeting headlines, we believe in the power of truth that touches the soul, the kind that stays with you long after the screen fades to black. Here on Starwatch Now, we don't just chase the news, we chase the humanity behind it. We search for the quiet moments others overlook, the unsaid emotions behind a celebrity's eyes, the whispers in the silence that say more than a press conference ever could. Our goal is to bring you deeper, more honest storytelling that doesn't just inform, but also connects, comforts, and inspires. Every video we create is made with the intention of resonating with people from every corner of the globe. Whether you're in Seoul, Tokyo, Paris, Manila, Jakarta, New York, or anywhere in between, we know that love, pain, and hope are emotions that don't need translation. We speak to the heart because the heart speaks back, no matter your background, age, or language. So if you're someone who seeks more than just surface-level entertainment, if you want stories that breathe, that feel real, that remind you of the quiet strength in love, the power of friendship, and the beauty of vulnerability, we invite you to stay. Subscribe to Starwatch now and become part of a global family that sees beyond the spotlight. Tap that notification bell so you won't miss the next story that might just reflect your own. Share our videos with someone who needs to feel a little less alone. And let us know, in the comments or in your heart, how these stories speak to you. Thank you for spending your time with us, for choosing to feel instead of scroll, and for believing, as we do, that real connection still exists in a digital world. This is Starwatch Now, where stories shine because people matter. We'll see you in the next one.